is. It's time for Believe It or Not. Heath Cummings tells you a statement, and of course, he'll let us know if you should believe it or not. I'm Jamie Eisenberg. That's Heath Cummings. Joining us now, it's our buddy Chris Towers. Let's get right to it. Here we go. Statement number 1. Believe it or not. Elijah Mitchell is the only 49ers running back worth rostering.
And for the purposes of this, we're still considering Deebo Samuel to be a wide receiver.
Yes.
But he is part of the problem for everyone else. Elijah Mitchell is the only running back that Kyle Shanahan seems to want to use as a feature running back. So I do believe this. Jeff Wilson right now is kind of a between the 20s. Maybe he gets a red zone carry. Nothing at all in the passing game and sharing running downs with Deebo Samuel. So I don't feel comfortable starting Wilson, who hasn't been very good when he's touched the ball. I don't have any reason to hold on to JaMychal Hasty right now. Mitchell's the only one that needs to be on a roster.
All right, Chris, a lot of fantasy managers, struggling, certainly 14-team leagues or larger, maybe need to trust one of these guys, and clearly Wilson would be the next man up if there is no Mitchell. So if we get to Week 15 and we're getting a situation where it's only Jeff Wilson, would you trust Jeff Wilson as maybe a number 2 running back, maybe a flex option for the 49ers as they take on the Atlanta Falcons this week?
Yeah, I don't know about a flex. You probably have better options at another position than Jeff Wilson will likely be. But, this is a situation where we've historically viewed whoever the starting running back for the 49ers was as a viable fantasy starter, not necessarily a must-start guy all the time, but generally speaking, we've wanted a piece of this backfield. We don't know if Elijah Mitchell, he has the concussion, but he also had that knee injury last week. So we don't exactly know if he's going to be back in Week 15. And yes, the Deebo Samuel part of it does change the things because he is getting his 6 to 8 carries per week, but it's not like Kyle Shanahan's offense has always just used one running back. So I do think, Jeff Wilson got 13 carries yesterday. That was in a game where the 49ers threw the ball dropped back to pass twice as often as they ran. I don't know if that's going to be the case moving forward. So I do think Jeff Wilson's likely to be, a desperation number 2. Like if you really don't have anybody else you want to roster or want to start, I think Jeff Wilson's probably going to get close to 15 carries next week if Elijah Mitchell's out. And that should be enough to make him a viable low-end RB2 maybe.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where it comes out. We had 13 for 56 in this game against the Bengals where it was back and forth, obviously going to overtime. And then the last time we saw him, it was a game where they were blowing out the Jaguars. He had 19 carries for 50 yards, so he's just not been very efficient in terms of what he's given you, and the lack of work in the passing game is troubling. So as you see here, most people believing what Heath says here about Elijah Mitchell, the only 49ers running back worth rostering. Let's go now to topic number 2. Believe it or not, Amon-Ra St. Brown is a starting wide receiver in PPR.
I'm going to say I don't believe it because I don't believe that DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams and TJ Hawkinson are all going to miss next week. If you told me for sure that they were going to, then I'd be more likely to believe it. I like the role for him over the last couple of weeks, but it hasn't been the same role. In this game, they kind of treated him a little bit like Deebo Samuel. They didn't give him the ball, but they lined both he and Khalif Raymond up in the backfield on a lot of plays. That's how Raymond scored his touchdown, and used them for those same passes they've been throwing all year. First to DeAndre Swift. They were just throwing him to wide receivers. I have to assume when they get some running backs healthy, they're not going to do that anymore. And when Hawkinson's back, the target volume won't be as good. So I think St. Brown is a flex in full PPR and someone that you probably can leave on the waiver wire and none.
All right, here's Chris, don't be the party pooper. He's the party pooper. He's got 24 targets his last 2 games, 18 catches, over 160 total yards, and has scored a touchdown. He scored at least 15 PPR points in those 2 games. So is he working his way into the starting conversation, or still just maybe, as Heath said, more of a flex option?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jamie, but if you're a wide receiver whose value is tied to a pass-catching running back being out, that probably means you're not very good. The 5 games before DeAndre Swift was out, he had 15 catches for 148 yards on 19 targets. I think part of the problem is I just don't think Amon-Ra St. Brown is very good. He's thriving right now because they really don't have anybody else. But if Swift comes back in particular, I think that's going to really hurt him. And also, they played without TJ Hawkinson yesterday. So, yeah, I don't see much. Like, if Swift and Hawkinson are out next week, yes, Amon-Ra St. Brown will be a wide receiver 3 for me.
All right, so keep an eye on the injury report. Certainly that matters, but fun to watch. Young players getting it done. All right, good. I'm glad they don't agree with you here, or do they agree with you?
48% agree with me, 44% disagree with me, so it's close enough.
Yeah, good. All right, now I'll go on the 48%. I think he's working his way into the conference. The problem is that the buys are done, and injuries, depending on what your team looked like. But it's been fun to watch. I like to see young players, and as we typically see, rookie wide receivers, it takes some time, and so maybe it's taking some time for him to come along. All right, let's talk about this one here. Believe it or not, unless Michael Carter comes back, the Jets should be off limits for fantasy purposes. So that's not just running backs. That's across the board. Quarterback,
just
running back,
Jets.
wide receiver, punter, offensive line. No Jets on your fantasy team?
I don't know why you would. We can't even project on a week-to-week basis which wide receiver is going to get the most targets. This team has topped 20 real points one time in the last 5 weeks, and that was against the Houston Texans. Now they're going on the road to face the Miami Dolphins, who have been outstanding offensively. They're chopping up the running back touches defensively.
Yes.
They're chopping up the running back touches too many different ways. Jamison Crowder, I had ranked as a top 24 wide receiver this week. He had almost no involvement in the passing game.
What, though, if you're stuck, Chris? And, same thing with the Jeff Wilson conversation. Ty Johnson had 10 total touches. I think it was 6 catches or 4 catches. I'll take a look. But he was involved in the passing game finally. If Tevin Coleman's out, if Carter's out, is there a desperation play? Jamison Crowder, desperation play. Braxton Berrios was their leading wide receiver. Do you come out with any Jets saying, okay, this is a team that if I'm stuck, I'll go this way, or I will definitely look at other options?
I thought Ty Johnson could be that guy this week. I thought Jamison Crowder could be that guy this week. And look, it's just 1 week. Like, it's not fated to be the same way for the rest of the season. But, I do a lot of notes to prepare for the show, and I've got, several sentences for each thing that we're going to talk about. And for this one, the Jets are off limit for fantasy. All I wrote was, yeah. There's not really anybody. Like, you'd have to be really, really desperate to maybe use Tevin Coleman if he's active next week.
All right. I can't make a case. All right. I got nothing. And as you see here, everybody believes you. 91.9%. Stay away from the Jets. It's just a shame. We were starting to get some fun performances from Elijah Moore and Michael Carter before he got hurt. Carter's still one more game away from returning, so just keep that in mind. So maybe for the stretch run in the fantasy playoffs, he can help you. But at this point, stay away from the Jets, and the Dolphins DST should be fantastic. All right, let's go to the next topic here. We kind of buried the lead a little bit, but believe it or not, Rashaad Penny is a must-start running back as long as he stays healthy.
I'm ready to be positive now. I will say 100% yes in non-PPR and probably in PPR as well. I think they have really wanted this to happen for like 4 years now, and so it finally did. He was over 8 yards per carry in this game. He scored 2 touchdowns, could have had a third. He's not going to do a whole lot in the passing game, but I do think with what he's shown as of late, and the fact that they so strongly desired for him to be the guy. I don't think Alex Collins or Adrian Peterson's getting in his way. I think Penny's going to be good for the fantasy playoffs.
All right, I'll be the negative guy here, Chris, because Penny was awesome. I thought he was going to play well. I thought he was going to have a chance to help fantasy managers. And like Heath said, we've been kind of waiting for somebody to take hold of this backfield. And he did. 16 carries, 137 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But it was against the Texans. Now, little step up in competition comes the Los Angeles Rams in Week 15. So it's the second part of this, or I guess the middle part of this. Must-start running back. Is he a must-start running back taking on the Rams?
That's going to be a really tough question. I haven't started my running back rankings, but I would think, he'll be in that like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Myles Gaskin range where because, he did run 14 routes on 29 dropbacks. That was the most of any running back. So it's not like he was totally uninvolved in the passing game, but they only targeted him once. This is not a team that throws to their running backs a ton. So it comes down to like he's going to be pretty big play dependent and especially touchdown dependent unless they do increase his passing game role. So that's the thing that gets tough with him relative to like Myles Gaskin, who has been really hit or miss this season, but does have that passing game role, does have a great matchup against the Jets in Week 15. I might rank Myles Gaskin ahead of Rashaad Penny. So I don't know if someone that I'm ranking below Myles Gaskin can really be considered a must start.
Yeah, and Gaskin's got to play. Got to clear the concussion, the COVID protocols as well. I haven't finished my rankings. I'll just tell you like where I have him in the same range of Saquon Barkley. Step up in competition this week against the Cowboys. You got Deontay Foreman who has interesting matchup against the Steelers who can't stop anybody against the run. So he's in that low end number 2 running back range, but definitely is an opportunity. And the flip side of that though is taking on the Texans. He only had 16 carries because the game was well in hand. Alex Collins still had 7 carries in that game. They should be more competitive with the Rams next week. At least that's the hope from the Seahawks perspective. And as you see, most people believing it, understandably so. We're looking for running backs this time of year, and Penny certainly can fit the bill. Will be the most will be the top priority in terms of what you should be looking at from a waiver wire perspective. All right, last Believe It or Not topic we have here is, believe it or not, Tyler Huntley is a Week 15 streamer if Lamar Jackson is out. Jackson is dealing with that ankle injury.
And there were more people who were interested in this than I expected. I do not want to start Tyler Huntley against a very good Packers defense. He does run a little bit, but it's like half of what Lamar does in terms of yardage. He's not had a lot of success getting the team into the end zone, which Lamar's also struggled with. I don't think, unless you're in a 2-quarterback league, Huntley is someone that needs to be picked up.
All right, Chris, are you on board with this or staying away from Tyler Huntley as well?
I'm a little bit interested. I mean, he's rushed for 40-plus yards in each of his 2, quote-unquote full games so far. And look, Taylor Heineke has been one of our favorite streamers all season. He hasn't been as productive as a rusher as Tyler Huntley has been in his 2 games. So, I do think anyone who has rushing potential can be a viable streamer, but I don't know if that's going to mean he's a top 15, top 20 fantasy quarterback, but he's definitely in the conversation for 2 QB leagues. And, man, there's not that many good quarterbacks out there right now. It's really tough at the position, and I think that, could make him viable in a deeper league. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we got some good matchups coming up from guys that haven't played. Tua Tagovailoa coming off his bye week. He gets the Jets this week. Ben Roethlisberger has certainly stepped up. He's available in a lot of leagues on waivers. Justin Fields is available in a lot of leagues on waivers. He had a very strong game, ran for more yards than Huntley, so it's not a slam dunk. Yeah. But in some 14, 16-team leagues, you could be looking at Huntley as a option in 1-quarterback leagues, because if he gets you 4 or 5 points on the ground, whatever he does through the air, chasing points, Justin Fields threw 2 interceptions, but still was a very good fantasy quarterback taking on that same Packers defense in Week 14 as well. All right, let's take a break right now. When we come back and get into, don't want to overlook the polls. They don't believe this sentence, or they do. I never understand.
They do not believe it.
Yeah. So.